right, guys, Chapter 7 of George Washington Sucks. Suddenly, a loud crashing of ice could be heard, along with the muffled voices of men. When Q turned the flashlight in their direction, the sight that met his eyes could not have been more welcome. "Matt, look! It's Katie! It's Katie! She's on that ice over there! And look, she's alive!" he yelled. "Matt, help me!" cried Katie. "I'm over here!" As Matt wiped the tears from his eyes and looked toward the beam of light, he was overcome with relief, for he could just make out the figure of his little sister and could barely hear her cries that were lost in the roar of the river. She was stumbling about on the ice floe that had come to a rest alongside a large wooden boat. At that moment, the flashlight batteries gave out, and all was dark again. "She must have landed on that ice when she fell out of the boat," Matt exclaimed. "She's alive! She's alive!" He was laughing and crying at the same time as Hooter and the others whooped for joy. "And there's another boat!" Q cried. "We can all be rescued!" "Help! Help!" Tony and Hooter cried out in unison. They could hear voices getting closer. "We're coming, Katie!" Matt yelled as loudly as he could. But their cries were met with a sudden silence. Then, out of the darkness, a deep voice commanded, "Halt, in the name of the Continental Army!" "Halt," Tony whispered. "Is he kidding?" "The Continental Army? Did he say the Continental Army?" Q asked, wiping the sleet off his glasses. Everyone in the boat was peering in the direction of the voice when Matt suddenly sat back in his seat. He had just gotten a glimpse of the long wooden boat as it nudged its way between the ice floes. Huddled in the craft were a group of men in tattered clothes. Some were wearing tri-cornered hats, and others had rags wrapped around their heads. Their faces were raw and weathered, and they were each clutching long guns in their rag-covered fingers. Matt breathed a sigh of relief as he watched a tall man in a dark cape reach over the boat's side and pull Katie from the ice floe. He quickly wrapped her in his thick cape and handed her to one of the men beside him. Matt was so overcome with relief that he was unable to talk, even though he had wanted to call to Katie and let her know that he was there. As he stood staring from the old rowboat, Matt couldn't take his eyes off the man who had rescued her. He was a tall, imposing figure in a blue and buff uniform. Matt had a strange feeling he knew the man, for his figure was unmistakable, and his white hair rolled on the sides and tied in the back with a ribbon. His face was strong and proud. It was the face of a leader, the face of a determined man. His eyes stared straight into Matt's, as if one commander had recognized another. It took all Matt's courage to speak. "My sister, is she all right?" "The child is alive. No harm will come to her." Who are you?" Matt stammered. "General George Washington, leader of the Continental troops," came the firm reply. "This is some kind of joke, right?" Matt mumbled. The general was not smiling, however, as the wind lashed the freezing rain and snow all about them. "You had better explain your business, what brings you out on this river this night, and whether you be friend or foe of the revolution," the general called above the roar of the river. He doesn't seem like a crazy man, Matt thought, as he observed the fierce determination on the general's face. Matt looked at the faces of the other soldiers in the boat. They didn't seem crazy either. They looked serious, dead serious, as they held their muskets at Matt and the other members of the club. "Are we on television?" Hooter started to smile. "Is this totally hidden video?" "They speak queerly, sir. And their dress is foreign," an officer in the general's boat spoke up. "They could be spies." The general nodded. "Where Where do you make your homes? He asked. Rumson? Matt called back. Rumson, Nebraska. Nebraska? Where is this place, Nebraska? The general and his men looked perplexed, but the state of their confusion was nowhere near that of Matt and his friends. I never met anyone who didn't know where Nebraska was, Hooter mumbled through his chattering teeth. Where do you think they're from? Tony stammered. I don't know, Matt whispered, staring at the soldiers and their muskets. But I have a strange feeling like we've seen them someplace before, Q concluded. Where? Hooter wanted to know. Where have we seen them? In our history book, Q whispered. We've gone back in time. You mean before TV and stuff? Hooter asked, looking at the old-fashioned muskets that were pointed at them. Before TV? Q squeaked. His voice always turned into a series of squeaks when he was excited. Try before electricity and flashlights. Try 1776, the Revolutionary War. That's why they don't know where Nebraska is, Matt exclaimed. In 1776, there was no such state as Nebraska. How did this happen? And if we really have gone back in time, how are we going to get home? Everyone stood staring at the boat full of ragged soldiers before them. Tony turned to Matt. You thought my backyard was so boring. I hope you're happy now. Matt was too stunned to reply. It was true. The Adventure Club had been his idea, but he had never dreamed it would turn out like this. Matt closed his eyes tight, wishing they could go back to the safety of a few hours ago, when his life had been normal and safe, and his biggest problem had been to finish the peas on his dinner plate. That's the end of the chapter.